Welcome back to the Cert Life podcast. I'm your host, Brenden Finn, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Dan
Dan
Takata.
Takata.
And today, I guess we're going to talk about filters, filter changes, maybe equipment, clean rooms, stuff like that. What do you think about that, Dan?
I like it. I've definitely done a few of those.
Yeah, just a couple, right? I mean,
Just a couple. I actually did one last week.
I say that whenever we hop on, I'm like, yeah, we're going to keep this short. It'd be like 20 minutes, and it's always like 45 minutes. So we're going to keep this one short. We'll keep it try and keep it like 20 minutes. Keep this a short episode.
I
But
think they've all been 37 minutes.
it seems like that. Like exactly.
Like exactly.
So filter changes. So I'll start with an actual clean room filter change I've been just working on recently with a customer I have. They have a very old clean room that's been in there since the late 80s, I believe. They need two new filters. The filters have been changed since 1980, thank God. But two of the filters, they had a couple patch. Well, actually, they had one patch on each filter, but those patches have been growing, which is what you see, right? And obviously, they failed. They need to be changed. The filters are made by HEPAcorp or HEPAcorp, however you want to pronounce it, out in California. I don't know if you ever dealt with their product.
Oh yeah.
They're I love their like room side replaceables. Those I love those filters. I think they're fantastic. This is like a giant positive pressure plenum clean room where you just have a bunch of panels in the ceiling. They actually bolt up from underneath. It's like an old design. And HEPAcorp, I guess they closed, were sold again, maybe sold again. I don't even know. So it was a bit of investigative work to try and get some filters, and it's been an ongoing process. I finally got a pricing for some filters, so now I have the luxury of finally taking care of that filter change. But
we used to pick up filters. We used to pick up from them when I was out in California.
That's right, because you were out.
We were like
right?
20 minutes away from them. So if we needed filters, we just drive over and just pick them up.
Nice. But it's funny because this isn't the first time I've had to deal with filters, like changing filters, and something comes out and you're like, you have to play like secret clean room sleuth, right? To figure out how to source some kind of filters that are no longer manufactured, or the company went out, or the equipment you're working on is no longer supported or produced. So you have to try and come up with these magical ways to get your customers filters, which is always fun, because I do try to always source original equipment parts. Obviously, most of the cabinet manufacturers, or I think all of them, none of them make their own filters. They obviously buy them from somebody else, but I still like to buy them through the cabinet manufacturers, so you just know you're getting exactly what is called for, what is specified. Because I know it does happen if you buy third-party aftermarket filters. I mean, have you ever run into a problem putting aftermarket filters into a cabinet before, Dan?
That happened to me about 3 weeks ago. Yeah, exactly. It was an older Baker. Yeah, we changed out the filters. Baker said, we can't provide these anymore. So I believe we went through Airflow Tech. They pulled up all the specs and everything. Everything was good. We installed the filters. It wasn't that difficult, but we got everything buttoned back up, went to do all the testing, and of course, it's not meeting their crazy zoned downflow specs. So if it was a uniform spec cabinet, everything would have been great. Everything would have been wonderful. But no, you got to meet those zones, the different rows. And, we called Baker the first time my technician called them, and the lady there just like straight up hung up on him because she started asking like, oh, what's the exhaust at? You should check the exhaust and all this. He's like, no, we got the exhaust good. Everything's fine. But she still had him, going through this runaround, and then finally got frustrated. He's like, I just need help with this. And then she hung up on him. So then
she got disconnected, Dan. She got disconnected.
Yeah, exactly. So he got a hold of someone else there in their technical support and started going through things. He asked, hey, so you didn't get these filters through us? Did you get them, third party? And we told him, yeah, we got these through Airflow Tech. And he's like, oh, what are the specs? And we told him, and he's like, yeah, the specs on that one, it's the one you guys have. It's like, whatever CFM at, 0.48 inches, and ours is like 0.46 or something. And we're like, I'm no scientist, so I don't know how much of an impact, that minuscule amount makes, but he's like, nope, that's why it fails.
Yeah. I mean, I have, and actually I've put Airflow Tech filters in. I mean, it hasn't happened to me in a while, but I've put some in for old new wear cabinets, which you can't, you might not be able to get the old blue monsters, right?
Hmm.
Putting in new HEPX bags with new filters, putting those in, and they like squeak by, like bare, like everything's maxed out, and they just about pass. And I'm like, great, this cabinet's gonna like, it has brand new filters, but it's gonna fail in like the next cycle. So of course that's always fun, because how do you? It's hard to tell your customer, hey, I just did all this work, deconned your hood, if it needed a decon, did all this work, disrupted your whole lab for a whole day, and you're spending all this money, and yeah, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out so well. That's a tough one. So,
Yeah,
but that's
that's
part of the reason I do like to go through the manufacturers.
hmm
It's definitely never the cheapest method, but I mean, I think just the peace of mind knowing you get, what you're putting in is helpful. But yeah, the clean room filters, I mean, you're kind of stuck with whatever you get, right? But that stuff, unless you're, swap. I mean, I have swapped out like, fan powered units that if a customer doesn't care what model they are, like the Mac 10s, the those units, if they're like completely enclosed, if they already have like an enclosed module style where it's not room side replaceable,
hmm
even those might not match, and sometimes they don't care. I try
right.
to talk my customers into room side replaceables for everything if possible. Makes life a lot easier in the long run.
I don't know why, but like I think my first 10 years doing this, I preferred like just like the typical Mac 10, it's like just swap out the whole unit, easy
Yeah,
peasy. You don't have to worry about gel seals that aren't right, stuff like that. You don't get any leakage that you have to then try to identify. It's pretty straightforward. My last couple years, I don't know if it's like just getting old and getting a little lazier, but the room
crotchety.
side
You're getting
replaceables,
crotchety, Dan.
I'm old and crotchety, yeah, but just getting a room side replaceable, I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. So I can pretty much do this one solo.
Yeah, it is nice. I know, like the Mac 10 units. I don't know. They're kind of hit or miss. I feel like they're a little flimsy. I Mac 10s. I like to make sure I tape where there's like the upper part where the fan is kind of sits in the filter. The filter has like a really tall side. It's like what 6-8 inches tall, and then there's like the fan housing section kind of bolts on the back and has an overhang. I like to tape those because I always seem to get like a lot of leakage, even though they have a gasket on them that like
Hmm.
shoots down the side from the fan, and then it comes around. Like if it's just sitting in a T grid, like a ceiling grid, I usually start to see that. So I make sure if I install any of those, I like to make sure they're taped up all nice and good. Get any aerosol anywhere from
Look at you
those.
going the
But
extra mile.
yeah, I try. Well, that's only to make my life easier. No, obviously, forced contamination from a fan powered unit is a concern. Obviously, all the air coming through the filter is fine,
Hmm.
but they're like those models in particular, right? That whole backside of the HEPA is under positive pressure. Like those even have on the backside, they have there's like 4 like riv nuts pressed in where you can put in eye bolts for your ceiling support, right? Because you should never put one of those. I will say this again: you should never put one of those things in without additional support besides the ceiling grid. For everybody listening, because that's dangerous. Okay. I don't know how many times I'll go up in the ceiling. I'll be like, the filter's just hanging there by like 1 inch, like that cheap steel ceiling grid that shouldn't even be in a clean room. And like, that's literally what's holding up,
Yeah, and
whatever,
some of
however
those
much they
requirements
weigh.
vary. Like those requirements can vary by state, right? I know a lot of the places I've been, it's like they'll have two. They'll just have like two opposing corners.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When I started, it
I
was
mean,
always
just
like all four of those.
for safety, I would put them in every time, regardless if it's required or not.
Oh, yeah.
They
Oh
make,
yeah.
and it doesn't have to be anything. I don't know if, as a sheet metal worker, some of the things that you get to deal with about like hanging dock, round dock, stuff like that. They make like a company called Gripple. I don't know if you've ever heard of those. All it is like aircraft cable. It's like a stranded steel cable, and it has a
Yep.
fancy little clip. And it's
Yep.
like, it's literally like a metal zip tie with steel cable. So there's no reason you can't throw 4 eye bolts in one of those things and throw some of those cables up. It requires an extra literally 3 minutes to do that, to make sure you don't crush somebody with a ceiling filter just comes tumbling out of. I'm surprised I actually haven't seen that happen before, because there's been numerous times I've been up into ceilings and been like, none of these are supported by anything. which is kind of shameful. But now there are structural ceiling grids. That's a different story. Where they provide support, but they're beefy and they might be like 1/8 inch extruded aluminum angle and stuff like that. Where obviously that can handle the load. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
just in a run of the mill type of ceiling, I've seen some sketchy installs over the years. But yeah, there's so many options for filters out there. I'm just glad post COVID, and lead time has come back. Remember waiting for filters a couple of years ago? It was like a
Yeah.
nightmare.
Yeah. They would say, okay, 4 months.
Yeah, yeah. You order it, and and they'll be like, oh yeah, that'll be 9 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and you're like, oh my god. And so many places were ordering stuff by the pallet, and you just couldn't get anything. Crazy. Yeah, glad those days are over. But I mean, it's still pretty long sometimes, if it's not a standard type of product. But I've seen some, it's still 4 week lead time, things like that, but nothing too crazy. I do have a filter change coming up in a bag in bag out unit, which is always fun. Yeah, it's a nice bag in bag out unit. It has isolation valves, gas tight dampers, so I can decon the whole unit. The one unit only has two filters in it. The other one only has one, so they're not overly large. I mean, well, the 2x2, well, the one that has two filters in it, it's stacked in 2 rows of two, so it actually has four, but I only have to change the top row. But at least it's not like a huge I've tested huge bag in bag outs where you're on like an 8 foot ladder doing the
Yeah.
top row, and I mean, that's a nightmare, and they're like three filters deep. I'm like, how are you supposed to change this safely? You're on an 8 or 10 foot ladder trying to pull 24 by 24 by 12 filters out of a unit into a bag. Okay, that's a
Yeah,
good
at
word.
my old job, we had a project out in California. It was on the roof. It was four HEPA banks that were all five across, so five deep and five tall. So huge bag in, bag out.
Yeah,
Just changing out filters pretty much the whole week, and they had us wearing full Tyvek bunny suits with
yeah,
pappers.
yeah. That's a lot of fun. But yeah, I got that coming up. That's always fun. But at least this one I can decon. It's not like what they use the BSL-3 space for that this serves. These units actually aren't even in the lab space. They're like in common areas, so they don't even really see anything hazardous. Well, they shouldn't. Well, they might, because it's like the tertiary boundary or whatever of the space. But most likely they have never. This place just went into commission not that long ago either. Plus, just having the luxury of being able to decon that whole bank by isolating it is pretty nice prior to doing the swap out. Makes life a lot easier. But that unit, actually, have you ever seen? I want to say it's a cam fill fire unit, and it has I don't know what they call it, but it has the probes internal. Have you ever seen that? Where you
Yep,
plug
yep,
in,
I've seen
your
those.
your photometer into the bank, and then you use a separate like motor, and it drives the probes back and forth. And they have like, I from what I recall of seeing it, like the probes are stacked. There might be, I believe there's four of them. So you basically plug into probe one, scan across the filter, and then you plug into probe two, and then it basically switches your photometer to the second probe. You scan it, you hook to the third one, you scan that. So
Okay,
you
that I
scan the
haven't
whole.
seen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's really nice. So it's basically like you're scanning a filter, but you aren't doing the movement. You're using a external motor. It basically
Got it.
moves the scanning probe back and forth across the filter face, but they're all fixed. They're like stacked, right? So there's like all above each other. So probe one only scans the top, quarter of the filter. And then probe two scans the second, the next quarter down. So you basically have to scan the filter 4 times with your photometer, but it's
Interesting.
nice. It's pretty simple. You just hook it all up and hit a couple of buttons, and it works its magic, and it's pretty neat. And it tells you, the machine, the motor gives you a readout of what distance it is, because it auto centers, or auto home, I think is what it's called, where it has internal proximity sensors, so it knows where the edges of the filters are, and it'll give you a readout like distance wise, so exactly that's like, oh, you have a leak. It's like 10.31 inches from the left. Like, it knows how far the probe has moved. So it's pretty nice. It's not like you're really gonna repair those filters anyways, so it's kind of irrelevant. But it is a cool feature, and it's a really nice setup, and it takes a lot of that. probe testing kind of guesswork. I don't want to say guesswork, but making sure you have good location. You're not picking up dirt. It's actually aerosol and all of that. It's nice. It's very definitive to know that when they're working, that they are working, and it's not you know there's no kind of second guessing what's going on with your
Right.
testing and your test methods and stuff like that. So yeah, what's the trying to think filter changes. I mean, I've done so many horrible filter changes. It's been a while, but I did a Hepex bag filter change fairly recently on like and the one I pulled out was like an old wood filter. Did you ever have to? I feel like when you get something with a Hepex bag now, the Hepex bag comes attached. But there was a time when they were not attached and they got shipped to you with like they looked like they had the metal rail, like the little cheap metal rail, and then they came with staples. They almost look like cable staples, and you had to literally hammer them into the filter. And I'm
I
like, "What?
I
Who
don't
thought
think
this
I
was a
don't
good
think that
idea?"
was like a specific time period that they started including the bag with it. I think it just depends on the month and who's doing it and how much work they want to put into it on
Yeah,
their end.
yeah.
Because I definitely seen times in the past where it's like, oh, cool, I unpack my filter. Oh, Hepex bag's there, great. Yes, I just pretty much have to untape it and unroll it. It's good to go. And then a couple months later, you're doing one. You open up the box, you're like, crap. I actually had one that just it didn't have the bag in it, like they just didn't send the kit or anything. And we're like, oh no. So we were in a bind there, and like we literally had to pull the bag off of the old
Oh,
filter,
and
go
reuse
buy
it.
a staple gun, and yeah.
Yeah, that's no good. And
Mhm.
half the time, like that double sided foam that goes around the motor, the end of the blower, right? You gotta like you put it on there and put the worm gear clamp on there or whatever. But that foam, like sometimes it like just turns to goo. It's like and it's just double sided foam tape. But maybe it's just whatever my customers are using in their hoods. I have no idea. But that tape can get like just gross and like just like it's like marshmallows. Like sometimes it's so strange. Yeah, that's oh yeah, those are so fun. So fun. I do like those.
I was at a job. This was a couple months back. Big clean room, whole bunch of Mac 10s of varying years, and actually not all of them were Mac 10s. It was just a hodgepodge of 2 foot by 4 foot fan filters. But me and one of the other guys I was working with, he was from one of our equipment services division, so he was just kind of helping us out. So he had never really tested clean rooms. He was like my spare set of hands for the day. But we're testing one, had a leak, tried to patch it, nothing. Leak kept extending. I'm just like, you know what, we got to fail this one. And he's looking up at it and he's like, hey, how long do these filters last? And like that particular filter we were under, I look up and I just looked at, the frame of the filter. I looked at the protective screen on it and I'm like, this Mac 10 right here, this is about 2006 to 2008. And he's like, really? And we climb up into the ceiling. I pop the ceiling tile and look and I'm like, yep, manufactured 2007. Spot on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of well, I have for a while now, I guess. I like to I don't want to say push because that's not accurate. I like to recommend to my customers to basically have a no patch policy. I mean, that's the easiest thing, right? Obviously there's some customers out there that are going to go for that want you to repair stuff. I'm not. I feel like you can repair, especially if it's visible damage to a filter. It's fairly easy to repair. We use like pipette type syringe, devices that you can, if you see like a face tear on the front pleat, you can definitively get onto both sides of the pleat,
Mm-hmm.
get in there and make sure it's, the non-visible stuff. You know how that goes. You just start chasing stuff all over, and it just turns into a
Yeah.
nightmare. Yeah, patching is definitely it's not fun. I don't think it's ever fun. You do get better at it. I mean, I'm definitely much better at it than I was 20 years ago. It's an art form,
It
I
is.
feel like you get a good tech. I have seen some guys like just unload a whole entire like tube of silicone onto a spackle knife, and I'm like, "Oh, that no, we don't do that. Like you can't do that."
There's no patch limits, right? You can just there you
I've
go.
been into, I went into an old IBM plant once and it was like all bets were off. There was like 8x8 patch. I mean, it was like half filters covered in silicone. It was a mess. But, they have different, guy. Obviously, they aren't making products for people. So, that's more about yield and stuff. So they have different rules and what they allow. But Yeah. And I've never, I mean, almost all filters nowadays too seem to come with protective screens. Very rarely do I see filters that don't have protective screens. Sometimes you'll see ones that have, I mean, they've even started putting protective screens on the backside of filters now.
Yeah, from what I'm told, it's only like an additional like couple dollars to add
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
So a lot of our customers who order their own filters for us to change out while we're on site, they're just like, let's just get this on the upstream side as well for an extra
Yeah.
like $2 or $3 per filter, something like that. That's what they say. That doesn't sound right to me. It seems like it'd be a little more expensive to put another screen on there,
Right.
but I don't know.
Yeah, I like them when filters have screens. I think it's great. Sucks to try and you can't really fix anything when they have screens. I mean, you can if, but
I can.
you can, and I have. There might be some cursing involved, but it does. It is it is possible. It is definitely possible. It was a lot nicer with the old filters with the big aluminum separators.
I hate those. Those are
Why?
terrible because like as a brand new tech, it was funny because I was doing a BSC that had those, and one of the techs I was working with actually, we get this supply filter into the BSC, and he goes to do the brackets on the backside and gets his elbows kind of on top of the filter,
Yep.
and my
Yeah.
supervisor I was with sees that, and he's like no, he's like you just destroyed the filter, and then we looked and we're like no dude, it's good. He just like the aluminum's just a little bit crunched, but we're fine. He goes no, he's like look at the downstream side, and we look down and you just see metal poking through, and we're like oh
Yeah.
man.
I've seen a footprint in a filter before from with those, and I'm like, how does that even happen? Like, how do you get a footprint? Yeah, it's a good time. Gotta love filters. We're at 23 minutes. I'm cutting you off, Dan.
Sweet, sweet. I gotta go pick up the kiddos.
Good
Yeah, this
times.
is our
Good
shortest
times.
episode yet.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we'll get shorter and shorter and then just be non-existent. No, we can't do that to our 10 subscribers.
I actually kind of like the 40-minute episodes. Those are
Yeah.
those are good.
I say 20 minutes, but honestly, it's hard to talk for only 20 minutes. It
I know.
really is.
I know. We can
Yeah.
we can ramble. We can ramble.
I get all excited to talk filters and, shop and all that good stuff. But yeah, go get your kids. So yeah, if
Mhm.
anybody out there in the listening, watching audience, whatever you want to call it, make sure you, I would say, follow us or subscribe. We have a YouTube channel now with our one video, now two. This will be
Do
our
we have
second, I
shirts
think.
yet?
I had another shirt made besides my Cert Life shirt with the knuckles. I have another shirt that says Got Cert, like the Got Milk shirt. I didn't wear it because it's like -5 out, and we have got like 9 feet of snow last night, so I was gonna wear a t-shirt today. But I'll make sure I put that one. I'll turn the heat up next time, and I'll just wear the t-shirt next time.
Nice,
But
nice.
yeah, if anybody wants to shoot us a message or ask us any questions or comment on anything, we only pretty much have our YouTube channel. I didn't create any other channels yet. No other social media. We'll get there. Maybe well, TikTok's getting banned, right? So I guess we probably shouldn't even bother with that. I've never even used TikTok, so because I'm old.
Yeah,
And
send us some topic suggestions too, so that Brendan and I aren't texting each other, 5 minutes before we decide to hop on this thing, and like, hey, what are
yeah,
we gonna ramble about today?
yeah, and it's. Let me make sure I'm gonna say this because I think every other episode I give out the wrong email address, but it's show@certlifepodcast.com. Show SHOW at certlifepodcast.com, or comment on one of our videos on YouTube or wherever else you happen to find us, Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. All right. Until next time, Dan, it was good talking to you again. Maybe we'll squeeze one in again before Christmas. If not, have a
Yeah, let's
happy
do it.
holiday. But I think we should squeeze one more in.
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah,
we
let's
got
do
it
it.
in us. So, all right. Until then, don't forget to like and subscribe to our show, people, and make sure you comment, share, and all that good stuff so we can spread the lovely Cert Life word. All right.
Heck yeah.
Sounds good. All right, sir. I will talk to you again soon.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Take care.